Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that George Washington Carver was born into slavery and kidnapped by slave raiders as an infant? Learn how he developed a lifelong love of plants and used his talents to improve the lives of farmers across the South. Learn that he earned a degree from Iowa State College of Agriculture and Mechanical Arts and was the first African-American faculty member at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. Discover that he worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and developed more than 300 uses for peanuts and hundreds more from other plants.
Usually when we picture like a massive scientific breakthrough or we think about a legendary inventor, we tend to imagine this very specific kind of sterile environment.
Right, like gleaming white laboratories and, million-dollar electron microscopes.
Exactly. People in pristine lab coats staring at bubbling beakers. There's this built-in expectation that true innovation requires a highly funded institutional setting.
It really creates a distance, doesn't it? We tend to think of innovation as something that happens completely detached from everyday life, behind closed doors.
Yeah, and certainly far away from, the dirt, the weather, and the sheer desperation of actual survival.
100%.
But then you step into the story of agricultural pioneer George Washington Carver. And that pristine laboratory image just completely shatters.
It really does. I mean, we are not starting in a lab today.
No, we are starting in the dirt of Missouri farm. And we're looking at a story that, honestly, completely rewrites how we think about innovation. So, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're exploring the extraordinary life and the massive agricultural legacy of George Washington Carver. And our mission for you today is to really trace this incredible arc.
Right, from a frail child to a true pioneer.
Exactly. How a child born into unimaginably difficult circumstances became this pioneering scientist who fundamentally revolutionized agriculture and unlocked the hidden potential of everyday plants. We're pulling from a great biographical overview of his life, his inventions, and his foundational philosophies.
And for you listening, I really want to emphasize that this isn't just, a standard history lesson about farming practices in the late 19th and early 20th century.
Thank you for playing that.
What we are exploring today is really a masterclass. It's a guide on how to look at the world differently, how to identify deeply rooted systemic problems, use nature itself as a teacher, and ultimately, how to discover your own unique talents.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand the scientist, we absolutely have to start with the origin story.
And it's an intense one.
It really is. The historical facts of his early life just carry an incredible weight. George Washington Carver was born on July 12, 1861.
Right, in Diamond Grove, Missouri.
Yeah, and his parents were enslaved, living on the Moses Carver plantation. And the tragedy, it begins almost immediately. His father actually died just before he was born.
It is a remarkably brutal starting point. He's born into enslavement, already missing a parent, entering a world that frankly viewed him as property rather than a person.
And the situation deteriorates almost instantly from there. Because when Carver was just an infant, he and his mother were actually kidnapped by slave raiders.
Just an infant. It's horrifying to think about.
Right. And now, eventually, Carver himself was returned to the Moses Carver plantation, but his mother was never found.
She was just lost forever.
Yeah. So he is left as an orphan infant who has already survived a violent kidnapping before he can even speak.
When you look at the sheer trauma and the instability of those early days, the statistical likelihood of this infant surviving, let alone altering the course of American agriculture, is incredibly small.
Basically zero.
Right. But, this is where his physical environment begins to shape him in some really unexpected ways. Because as Carver grew, he was physically very frail.
Very sickly, right?
Yeah, and because of that severe frailty, he was actually unable to do the punishing physical labor in the fields that would have typically been demanded of him.
Which is such a fascinating pivot point, because back then on a 19th century farm, your physical ability to do hard labor was basically your entire worth in that economic system.
A massive burden if you couldn't do it.
Exactly. If you couldn't pull a plow or harvest a crop, you were considered a burden. But it's almost like a classic superhero origin story.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right, like a perceived weakness. His physical frailty actually forces him into a different environment, which was the woods. And that unlocks his superpower.
His unparalleled understanding of plants.
Exactly. He spent his time exploring the forests near his home. He immersed himself in nature not just as a casual observer, but as a deeply curious student.
He developed this understanding through pure, unfiltered observation. I mean, he spent so much time tinkering and understanding the local flora that he actually earned a nickname in his community.
The plant doctor.
The plant doctor, yeah. And he was actively helping his neighbors with their ailing plants and gardens, diagnosing issues, and figuring out what the plants needed to thrive.
Which is a great local story, but, healing a few local gardens is just the beginning. To truly heal the land on a massive systemic scale, Carver realized he needed to combine that natural intuition with formal, rigorous science.
He needed the education to back it up.
Right. So he sets out to get it. He learns to read and write, which, given the era and his background, is a monumental hurdle all on its own.
Absolutely monumental.
But he pursues formal schooling, and his academic trajectory is just meteoric. By 1894, he earns a degree from the Iowa State College of Agriculture and Mechanical Arts.
And he didn't just scrape by either.
No. I need to pause here, because he became a true, undeniable expert. His specific, deep knowledge of plant breeding and the regenerative properties of soil was so brilliant that it earned him an appointment as the college's very first African-American faculty member.
Breaking massive racial barriers in 1890s academia.
Just incredible.
Yeah.
Simply because his knowledge of soil regeneration was that indispensable. He then goes on to earn his master's degree there in 1896.
He had reached what many would consider the absolute pinnacle of success for someone in his position. A secure, respected faculty position at a major institution.
Doing the research he loved, far away from all those brutal hardships of his youth. Which, this brings up a massive contradiction for me.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I am George Washington Carver, and I have fought my way from being an enslaved, kidnapped orphan to a respected university faculty member in Iowa, I am staying in Iowa.
You're keeping the comfortable job.
I am absolutely enjoying the laboratory and the stable paycheck. If he was doing so well breaking barriers in Iowa, why on earth did he leave it all behind?
Well, it really comes down to a profound sense of purpose. Right around the time he finished his master's, Booker T. Washington.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, a towering figure in education and civil rights. He actually reached out and invited Carver to leave Iowa and join the faculty at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And Carver accepted. He traded the comfort and resources of Iowa for the deep, systemic challenges of the post-Civil War South. He went to Tuskegee and he remained there for decades, eventually joining the U.S. Department of Agriculture in 1935.
He essentially walked directly into the epicenter of the agricultural crisis.
He did. And at Tuskegee, Carver was able to institutionalize his core teaching methodology. He firmly believed that nature was the greatest teacher.
Not just textbooks.
Right. He didn't just want his students memorizing facts. He taught them to truly understand the dynamics of agriculture, to read the environment, and specifically how to regenerate soil so it could support a variety of crops.
And that specific focus on soil regeneration is really the collision point for this entire story. Because at that time, the South was facing an absolute agricultural apocalypse caused by relentless cotton farming.
Cotton is notoriously demanding. It rapidly strips the soil of its essential nutrients, particularly nitrogen. And in the South, the economic system was so dependent on cotton that they had been planting it year after year over and over in the same fields until the soil was essentially dead.
They were just trapped in this vicious cycle.
Exactly. Pulling less and less from dirt that had nothing left to give.
Wait, I want to challenge this a bit, though. Even in the 19th century, farmers understood the basic concept of crop rotation, right? Like, why couldn't they just plant wheat or corn for a year to give the dirt a break?
Well, because planting corn or wheat also pulls nutrients out of the soil.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, to fix dead soil, you need a restorative crop, not just a different demanding crop. You need something that actively puts the vital nutrients back into the earth.
Okay, enter George Washington Carver.
Exactly. He looks at this devastated landscape and tells these desperate southern farmers, you need to stop planting cotton. You need to plant peanuts instead.
Which, to a farmer whose entire livelihood depends on cotton, sounds completely insane.
It sounds like financial ruin.
But the peanut was the biological key. And I want to dig into the mechanics of this because it's so cool. How does a peanut actually fix dead dirt?
It's a brilliant piece of botanical engineering, really. Peanuts are legumes, and legumes have this unique symbiotic relationship with a specific type of bacteria called rhizobia.
Okay.
And these bacteria live in little nodules on the plant's roots. Now, our atmosphere is full of nitrogen, but plants can't use atmospheric nitrogen. It's useless to them in that gas form.
Right.
But the rhizobia bacteria on the peanut roots actually pull that nitrogen out of the air, convert it into a form the plant can consume, and then they store the excess in the soil.
So the peanut plant is literally pulling invisible fertilizer out of the sky and injecting it into the dead cotton fields.
Precisely. It acts like a battery charger for exhausted soil. By planting peanuts, the farmers were biologically repairing the land so it could eventually support other crops again.
Okay, the biology makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But there's a massive economic roadblock here that I just can't look past.
A market demand.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting. Most people just think of Carver as the peanut guy who liked inventing things. But the inventions were actually a secondary solution to a primary problem.
Right. What's fascinating here is that causal link. You have to view this from the perspective of an impoverished farmer in the 1890s South.
You can't pay your mortgage with nitrogen-rich soil.
No, you can't. If you grow a massive field of peanuts and there is zero market demand for peanuts, you starve. His primary goal was crop rotation to regenerate the soil. But to get farmers to actually plant peanuts, Carver had to make peanuts economically valuable.
He had to make it a cash crop. So he basically says, fine, if nobody wants to buy peanuts, I will invent reasons for them to buy peanuts.
That's exactly what he did.
I am looking at the list of things he created from the peanut in the source material, and it is staggering. We were talking about dyes, plastics, and gasoline. Let's stop right there. Gasoline from a peanut. How on earth do you fuel a combustion engine with a legume?
It requires looking past the peanut as a food and seeing it as a collection of chemical compounds.
Okay.
Peanuts are incredibly rich in lipids, or oils. Carver realized that if you extract that peanut oil, you are dealing with hydrocarbon chains.
I see where this is going.
Right. Through various chemical processes, essentially applying heat and pressure to break those chains apart, similar to cracking petroleum, he could synthesize a fuel that functioned like diesel or gasoline.
He is literally disassembling the molecular structure of a peanut and reassembling it into industrial products.
That is the genius of it.
Yeah.
He didn't just see a plant, he saw a biological factory.
And he applied this intense inventive focus to other overlooked crops as well. Plus, the records show he created 175 different products from sweet potatoes, 60 products from pecans. He developed entirely new varieties of cotton and even identified more than 100 species of fungi.
But what is absolutely vital to remember, however, is that he never allowed himself to be isolated in a laboratory while doing all this.
Right.
He didn't just sit in a room, invent all these products, file patents, and get rich. He took this vast agricultural knowledge directly to the farmers.
To promote health and nutrition.
Yes. He designed something called the Jessup Agricultural Wagon, which was essentially a mobile classroom.
Yeah.
He drove it out into the poorest, most rural communities to teach impoverished farmers directly.
And he became so influential doing this that even the President of the United States came knocking.
President Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Yeah. FDR admired Carver's work so much that he actively sought his advice on U.S. agricultural matters.
Think about that trajectory. From an enslaved orphan who was legally barred from reading to a trusted advisor for the President of the United States.
It's unbelievable. But, you know, an output of this magnitude inevitably leads to a massive historical footprint.
Oh, without a doubt.
The timeline of Carver's monumental recognition is just huge. Let's run through it.
Yeah.
In 1936, he received the Theodore Roosevelt Medal for Distinguished Achievement in Science.
Well-deserved.
And even after his death on January 5, 1943, the impact just kept growing.
Huh.
You see 2 commemorative stamps issued in his honor. In 1977, he's inducted into the Hall of Fame for Great Americans. By 1990, he's elected to the National Inventors Hall of Fame. The Tuskegee Institute dedicated an entire museum to him. And there was a national monument placed at his birthplace in Missouri on July 14, 1953.
It is a towering list of accolades. But, you know, his legacy isn't just measured in medals or monuments.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And this is the profound underlying truth of the source material today. Carver's legacy is really anchored in his spiritual and philosophical worldview.
Exactly.
He held this deep belief that his diverse gifts and talents, and indeed our own individual talent, are literal gifts from God.
That philosophy governed his entire approach to science. He didn't view himself as the brilliant originator of these ideas. He viewed himself merely as a steward of a gift he had been entrusted with. His job was simply to listen to what the natural world was trying to teach him.
There is a piece of scripture highlighted in the source material that perfectly captures this exact worldview. It's from Doctrine and Covenants, section 46, verse 11. It reads, "For all have not every gift given unto them, for there are many gifts, and to every man is given a gift by the Spirit of God."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Carver's life is a living testament to that truth.
Absolutely.
He used his unique gift to observe nature, he tried new things, and he learned from others. And it brings up some vital questions for you listening to this. What gifts do you have? Do you recognize talents or gifts in others?
Because Carver literally took what he was given, a frail body, a sharp mind in the woods of Missouri, and he transformed the global agricultural landscape.
He really did.
So to quickly recap this incredible journey, we went from a frail, kidnapped orphan facing impossible odds to the local plant doctor, then to an academic pioneer breaking barriers in Iowa.
And finally, to a visionary at Tuskegee.
Yes, who used the humble peanut to heal the earth and save an entire regional economy.
He looked at a simple, everyday peanut and saw dyes, plastics, gasoline, and the salvation of southern soil.
But there is one final provocative thought to ponder here. Because with all of those brilliant inventions, the plastics, the fuels, the cosmetics, George Washington Carver only ever patented 3 of his products.
Which is staggering by today's standards.
He could have been incredibly wealthy. But he chose to give this knowledge away freely to heal his community.
It's a completely different way to look at value.
Right. So thinking about Carver and his peanuts, what ordinary or seemingly insignificant thing in your own life, work, or environment are you currently overlooking that might hold extraordinary potential if you only look at it through the lens of your own unique gifts?
What could you build if you just started looking closely at what's already right in front of you?
Something to think about the next time you are trying to measure the true worth of your own talents. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this day in his story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in his story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.